Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Can we go to the next slide, please? Hi, everyone. My name is Elmira, and I am the project manager for this research project. I have a public policy background, and I've worked in both youth and gender spaces. So I'm really excited to bring my experience and background into this project. And hopefully you get to learn a little bit more about this research and employment project. I'm going to pass it over to Herline to give an introduction.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on Friday morning. I hope you're keeping warm. As some of you know, my name is Herline Aurora. I'm the co-founder and managing director of South Asian Tamil Women's Collective. And if you know me from different spaces, I have multiple roles and hats in the community. I'm a consultant, a researcher, an educator. And again, really excited for you all to join us in this conversation today.
Next slide. I also wanted to share the rest of our team. So although you've met Herline and myself, we also have Seema, who's our research consultant. She's also on the call. And Rajvi, who is our communications and social media coordinator, who is leading the back end of this Zoom call right now. We also have an amazing group of community advisors. We lean on them a lot with all aspects of our research and work. So we have Amar, Shagufe, Akuswa, Zaina, and Abarna. Next slide. But before we begin, I do want to start us off with the land acknowledgement, given the fact that we're all located in different aspects of Ontario and the rest of Canada. Thought this would be a good way to start. There is a continued remembrance of the land for what it provides us. The sustenance that comes from air, water, land, and the elements is sacred, preserved, thanked for, and remembered throughout the day in the diverse ways in which we practice our humility and recognizing that we are all part of creation. Every day we give thanks to those who have preserved and who have persevered and continue to fight for the lands upon which we have settled. Specifically, we're on the Williams Treaty and thank our First Nations, Indigenous communities, the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Next slide. Now let's go ahead and get started. So today we are going to mainly be discussing what are the career or employment needs and realities of young South Asian and Tamil women ages from 18 to 30 across the GTA. So we're going to start off our presentation by talking a little bit more about the collective, then diving into the research project, the vision and plan, and then talk about what community involvement and support would look like from the rest of the community and how, if you want to be involved, you can stay involved. Next slide.
Ooh, perfect. Okay, great. So as you know, South Asian Tamil Women's Collective is a grassroots community-based organization that really focuses on fostering and creating spaces for intergenerational connection, growth, and learning for South Asian and Tamil women, girls, and gender diverse communities. And so we launched the collective about several years ago, and it started off as just organizing community well-being conferences with educators, community members, women, young women, students, youth, you name it, and in partnership with York Region District School Board. So we still continue to create and design those annual well-being conferences. But this year, we've done a lot of learning through that time. And this year, we were very fortunate to get funding from Ontario Trillium Foundation to really dive into some of the needs that we continue to see in our community around supports for career development, around supports for employment, and actually understanding what those look like. And so we're diving into this community-based research project with support from OTF and a lot of infrastructure support from Agincourt Community Services Association as our organization mentor. In addition, we also recently this month got funding to scale our community well-being conferences from the region of York. And we'll be doing a larger conference and event in the coming months. So a lot's happening, a lot of funding, I would say, in 1 year with usual budgets of less than $10,000 for a grassroots collective. So very, very excited to see what comes out of the work that we're co-designing and co-building with community. Next slide. So there are terms that I would say are really important for our work and for our community to always interrogate, to understand and critique. And so The term what South Asian is extremely important because it really helps us understand that it's a colonial and racial construct that's put onto a group of people. It's not how often people might identify themselves. And so to acknowledge the historical terms and the realities of these constructs are really important for us as we think through and design our research as well. So I'll read a little bit about how we're thinking about South Asian identities and how we're interrogating these conversations even through our design and our research process and our programming. So we do recognize that groups within the diaspora have suffered the hands of targeted political and civil actions, oppression, and genocide, and it's important to name those intentional, historic, and ongoing erasure of Tamil and minoritized identities from South Asian conversations. Not everyone self-identifies as South Asian, and people do think through, there's many ways how people connect with their identity in the community as well. And so we do not take these tensions lightly. We know that the intercultural and diaspora differences arise from faith, culture, and traditions, or used as tools for neo-colonial oppression to divide our communities and collective efficacy. And so for us as a collective and really thinking through with our community as well and continuously learning, we do want to reclaim the term South Asian and represent the diaspora as a whole. We are committed to striving for solidarity amongst all the diverse communities by recognizing differences and intentionally fostering unity as well, but being mindful of historical challenges and realities. So we definitely have a lot of open conversations in our spaces and are always open to interrogating and critiquing. Next slide. Gender and identity, also another construct. There's no binary to these, but that we're continuously navigating these conversations and thinking through critically in ways of how do we think through gender and identity with communities that we're talking about, especially when we're thinking through discrimination, privilege, oppression, and ensuring that we're using an intersectional lens in our research design and our approach. Understanding that lived experiences do shape a lot of factors, including race, ethnicity, gender, class, sexuality, geography, age, ability, migrant status, and religion, do shape how people navigate systems and structural realities as well too. And so the intersectional lens, the understanding interrogation of gender and identity and what is South Asian are continuously at forefront when we're thinking through designing of community-based research, when we're thinking through designing of community-based programming, and how we're showing up in community as well at large. And so I just want to be mindful that these terms are extremely important to us and how we're thinking through our work as well. Next slide. So why are we doing this research project? I think it's really important to understand that for the past 7 years, we've been organizing community conferences and events for young South Asian and Tamil women and gender diverse communities, primarily in New York region, but now coming across the GTA, especially with the reality of the pandemic. And common conversations and topics and themes that continue to come up in our discussions with community are more needs and resources around career development, education, and mental health supports. They're so core to the fact that we're trying to figure out how do we build more capacity and alignment with other community organizations, groups to support at large. And so in addition to that, we've also seen a pandemic that has released numerous reports and op-ed discussions about the impacts the pandemic has had on the employment outcomes and career pathways for women and youth and the need for feminist recovery responses. However, we realized that with these reports, there was a data gap and that we wanted to dive a bit deeper to understanding those distinct experiences of racialized women, and in particular, South Asian and Tamil young women, as it is the largest racialized group in Ontario, and I think becoming in Canada at large with the increase of international students as well. And so we want to dive deeper into understanding those cultural nuances, those cultural experiences as well, and have a better understanding about what does employment needs, programming, and resources need to look like. Some of you may have also seen in March 2022, Pink Attitude, another community-based South Asian organization, released a national study analyzing the experiences of South Asian women's experiences in the labor force. It was a report that I have not seen come out, and it was a report that I was very intrigued when it came out, but we wanted to dive deeper into some of the work that they were also sharing as well. The report documented a specific group of women felt unfairly pressured to choose between caring for their family or prioritizing their career, and documented that cultural expectations placed on South Asian women have resulted in them having less time to devote career building activities such as social networking. For us, we want to dive deeper into understanding those cultural nuances and other conditions and factors that impact one's career development and growth and employment mobility. And this report really primarily focused a lot on the corporate sector and space in terms of needs for employers to build more sponsorship and mentorship programming to support South Asian women. and we want to dig deeper. What does those resources actually need to look like, and how are they, and how is community a part of that design and that framework as well too? So with our lived experience and work in community in particular, focusing on program design and research, we know how important economic and social mobility is for racialized young women, and want to use this project in particular and this research to better understand community needs, assets, solutions, and programming and resources and areas for action. So we're really, really grateful that you're all here with us today, because we want to share more about what we're working on in our design process and approach. Next slide.
So now Herlene discussed why we're doing this project. I'm going to go over how we're going to do it. As Herlene mentioned, we are asking these questions to increase community understanding on the needs, assets, and the realities of young South Asian and Tamil women and gender diverse communities as they prepare for their careers and enter the workforce. This community-based research project we're hoping it'll gather information on one of the largest racialized groups in the Greater Toronto Area and create a profile of young South Asian and Tamil women, which will include their demographics, their academic and career pursuits, their employment needs and realities, their visions and hopes, and how we can better support them in their career pursuits while also addressing cultural nuances, gender expectations, and exploitative labor practices. And so what you see on the slide here, these are the research questions that we're hoping to ask. One of the main ones that you see in question 2 is, what are the main pressures they experience or have experienced that will guide or shape what careers they will enter, what and who impacts their dreams and career trajectory? So that question is really phasing out to be like, it's the core of our work. That's the question that we're asking as we're developing this project further. Next slide. So in terms of the research project and goals, we have different phases of this project that we're holding ourselves to. Right now, we're in the research plan and approach phase. So the next steps are to conduct a literature review, launch our online survey, and host virtual and in-person learning circles. And we're hoping to showcase our findings in the form of a report and a community event. I know this slide may not give the timeline as well. So the next slide, if Rajvi, you can go to the next slide. So this right here should show you some of the ways we're phasing our approach. So right now we're kind of in between project planning and launch, and the literature review and online survey and learning circles. We're really hoping to wrap up this project by the spring or fall of 2024 by a community action summit. So whatever our findings are, we're hoping to create a report out of it and then have a community-based event where we're able to talk about what we learned and share with the rest of the community the impacts of this study, and then hoping to scale it even further. Next slide. And now I'm passing it over to Herlene.
Perfect. So as you've seen, there's different phases of this research project, and we're really diving into getting community involvement and support. We're still shaping up those processes and those phases, working with our community advisors, working with Seema Taneja, our research consultant, and we really want to come in and get your ideas and perspectives and feedback as well on the research phases that we're focusing on. So we'll dive back into that side a little bit later. But here's where we can get your support as well too. So research and policy reports, white papers, articles to dive into for literature review. We really want to focus, we're diving to the next stage of our work, which is collecting and understanding what data currently exists out there around these topic areas. And so focus areas are on career development and employment for South Asian and Tamil women and gender diverse communities, students, youth, young racialized women. We know where there are some reports. We definitely have started listing, but if there's things that you're working on or you've seen in the past few years that would be really helpful for this project, we'd love for you to share it with us as well too, or links. Sometimes you can get access to these documents, sometimes you can't. So it's helpful to understand where community is focusing their research on as well too. And then looking for partners and champions to co-host learning circles across the GTA. The GTA means for us, we'll be in Peel region, we'll be in York region, we'll be in Durham region, and we'll be in Toronto to have conversations in person and virtually with community on these areas around career development and employment. And so we're looking for folks to come and co-host with us. We're looking for folks to support us in terms of recruitment and social media outreach. And that could be even smaller grassroots organizations that we really like to engage with, or even larger ones who are working with this diaspora and larger population through their programming or social services or employment needs. We're also looking for space to organize a community summit for over 100 people in fall 2024. The big hope in terms of this work and the big goal in terms of this work is to really share the research findings, share the learnings, but also to amplify a lot of others in the community that have done similar research to in adjacent work. So I'll give one prime example. Lavia Mamir is here today, the ED, and they recently did a research report on international students, primarily young women and their employment needs and experiences. There's a lot of adjacent community-based research that we'd also like to profile and highlight and bring folks in the space together, collectively talking about these issues, but also dreaming about what are the potential solutions and what do we need to design collectively for. And then opportunities to present what we are working on in panels, events, thought leadership pieces, op-eds, and podcasts. So if there is an opportunity to say, to showcase some of the work that we're diving into and to have conversations with you or your teams or your organizations, we love to get that space to do it. So share and connect with us at projects at SATWcollective.com. We'll also be sharing all this slide deck, this recording and webinar with all of you in email too, so you could pass it to your networks. You can engage with us, and you'll have and set up meetings with us as well too. Next slide. All right. It's 10:21. We've gone through our research framing a bit quick, but we can definitely go back to any slides to dive into discussion, because this is the hope that we get to present some key information on what we're working on with you, to what we're working on in the community, and for you to provide us feedback and insights and your wisdom as well. So if you have thoughts or questions about what we have shared, we'd love for you to put up your virtual hand and unmute yourself, or share the comments in the chat box. We're reviewing them as well too right now, and we can share them out loud and have a conversation, or type in any thoughts in the Jamboard. So Rodri has just shared the Jamboard link, and we'll be looking and monitoring those questions or thoughts and feedback as well through time. If nothing's coming up right now and you want to come to that Jamboard later, please do so. But this is an opportunity for us to engage with you, and you can share your thoughts on Jamboard anonymously as well too. So that gives you multiple options to engage with what we're talking about. So I'm going to pause here. Any initial questions or thoughts coming through with what we were sharing and working on? All right, Shamita, I'm gonna can you unmute yourself, Shamita, or let me see if I can.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. No, I just had a question regarding the geographic area of the research project. I was wondering what the rationale was to not include the Halton region and Hamilton area in the GTA research project.
I think we primarily, knowing that the community is growing rapidly across the GTA and beyond, we primarily focused on 4 areas, just knowing where the community resides at this current moment. There is such an interest and a desire to dive deeper into our research in bigger phases. And so a big hope is that GTA, a future phase, will lead to Ontario, and a future phase will potentially lead to all of Canada. And so there's no limitations in terms of the only limitation actually is time and capacity and what we can dive into with a small team at this current moment. And so we started off with GTA, but really want to amplify and go and become bigger in terms of the work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, I see some more questions. Okay, I'm reading through. Congratulations, thank you so much. We're really excited as well. I see a comment from Tamina. I think this is an excellent research project, especially examining the impacts of cultural norms on various women in their career paths and seeing the nuances and similarities amongst different cultures. Wishing you all the best. Thank you, Tamina. I really appreciate it. How do you hope to use the findings of this research? I'm going to let Amira join in the conversation as well. I'll jump in too. But a lot of the findings are really to think about what does programming actually need to look like. So we kind of paused because South Asian Thought Moments Collective did get some funding to pilot a mentorship program, and we did it, and we piloted and we tested. But then we went back in our design process and thinking, and we're like, we're quick as an organization to design events and programs, and naturally that's what we tend to do. But we wanted to dive back into like, what are those needs actually need to, what are those needs? Like, what are those experiences? What are those nuances before we design programming, before we design resources, before we figure out like what are those interventions need to look like. And so we went back into research to have a better grounding and a better understanding of what is community saying, what are their understanding of employment and their dreams and their hopes and goals, and how do they want to see programming, how do they want to see resources designed, what interventions would really be helpful and supportive for their pathways and their economic mobility. And so I think that's where we focus on this research can really shape other areas of work, but they can also shape a conversation around policy and advocacy and action areas that we really want to further understand too. And so Amira, I'll let you jump in if you have any thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think that's also the beauty of doing this research is once we do it, I think we'll be able to scale it up further and really understand, do we need to focus on programming or do we need to focus on policy and advocating to policymakers about certain needs that our community has? I'm a huge fan of data collection, and I even found that when I'm talking about the experiences of post-COVID-19 for young people, especially young racialized women, young South Asian and Tamil women, like it's hard to sometimes quantify your experience because people just don't. I'm speaking from a policy lens because I'm a policy I like to wear the policy hat a lot. So speaking from that lens, sometimes it's really hard to quantify or qualify what you're speaking about. So in this case, talking about community-based research with data collection is just going to ground our experiences a bit better. It makes sense of like our world, our realities from a data perspective, which in a way is really important when we're, talking about potential programming or potential policies or any forms to mitigate some of the issues or concerns that our community faces. So I think as of right now, like we're hoping to conduct a report, and then from there, maybe it'll influence policy, maybe it'll influence programming. So I think I'm really excited for what it could do, but I'm also really excited to just get some numbers, get some data, and really quantify the experience of this community, especially after COVID-19.
Any other thoughts or reflections that are coming up from what we're working on, or feedback around the design process? And we can go back to the design as well. So if Roger, if you want to go back to a few slides around our 6 boxes. Thanks so much around co-facilitating. We are looking for support because there is going to be a lot of opportunities to engage with this work, and you'll see a call out continuously on our social media channels. Will also, now that we have like email addresses that are interested, it will also provide newsletter updates coming on where you can support to around the facilitation, around the community summit that we're going to be hosting collectively, and resources that we're going to really need from the community at large to amplify this work and to support it as well. So again, in terms of research goals, like these are core, we have our community advisory committee that's really helping us think through our research design and process. We're building a community engagement plan and approach. This is the first of many opportunities to engage with us on this project. Hoping to do an Instagram live as well in the next coming weeks is to engage with community. Our research plan and approach, we're diving into a literature review and asking for literature. So if you have done research, or folks that have done research in their master's or their PhD and on these topics, this would be really helpful. Or at think tanks or research institutes have done research on this topic, it would be really helpful. And then analyzing your data, mobilizing that knowledge, and really sharing it with community at a large scale event. So if you have any feedbacks or thoughts about this design or process, we're here with questions. I'm not seeing, or you can also email Amira. Amira's leading the project's email account, so she'll respond back to you if you want to have more intimate discussions about the work that we're doing. That'll be really helpful as well too, because I know some of you have to leave early, and that's okay. I've seen some messages come across. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Velk. I really appreciate it. So bilingual sessions include more newcomer women, and I think that's where we're trying to figure out in our research design approach on that specific demographic pieces around immigrant, newcomer, especially around the area around 18 to 30, and even international students. There's quite a bit of research already done on international students, so we won't be diving into that experience in particular with this project. There are questions on the Jamboard. Okay, I'm going to pull up the Jamboard, and let's see what comes up as well too. I have it beside me. Thank you so much, Magdalena, for sharing. So when will community dialogues start? So it's a very exciting project. I'm just going to read off what I'm seeing on the Jamboard right now. I look forward to the findings. If our agency can offer space and audience to participate in community dialogues, when will they start? So we're really hoping for those community learning circles to start being, we're planning them in the next few weeks, but we're really hoping them to launch around February, March. So virtually and then in person. And so if all goes well with our timelines, I think it will definitely be winter and spring months of 2024 to start launching those learning circles in person. And then I'm just looking at the chat box. Hi, congrats. It sounds like from Gabriella, it sounds like a great initiative. I'm currently working in the area of early learning and childcare. There's a huge shortage of ECEs. Yes. And having worked with immigrant and refugee women, we know they face intersectional barriers to access post-secondary education. I recommend you reaching out to South Asian women's rights organizations. They've conducted research in this area. Very helpful to know. And absolutely, we're really building our connections with the larger community of South Asian and Tamil-based organizations as well to getting support and resources and amplifying collectively together. Which organizations have you reached out to support this research project? So there's quite a few. A lot of folks have been invited. We've invited over 100, I would say 150 folks to this event call and this event today. We will be sharing this webinar to many after our discussion as well too, and having more intimate discussions with Tamil-based and South Asian-based organizations leading in the GTA on various projects and various focus areas. So we are in conversation with many leaders from CASA, for Tamil Civic Action, Tamil Women Rising, Lalnia, like even our community-based networks that we have. We're definitely building more alignment to seeing where the work could have synergy with others. But this was definitely a call out to invite everybody to see where the synergy lies in terms of partnerships and engagement. Can you talk a little about the learning circles and what resources supports are you looking for from agencies who wish to participate? I think with the learning circles, a lot of it is space right now. We'll have resources to facilitators, but we really need, if we're co-hosting a learning circle, we need community organizations or grassroots groups to support us with that social media outreach and getting participants in that specific region. So whether it's Peel or Durham, and then diving into like hosting that space and making sure that we can have some setup and supports in those areas. So whether it's tech, chairs, tables, etc., whatever it might be, and we'll bring the facilitators in as well too. And so how can community agencies who already have programming to support employment career development needs be of assistance to this project? I think that's where if we will be paying all the research participants in the learning circles. So I think for those that are focusing on that are meeting the demographic needs, and once we start sharing out that participant call out to engage in the learning circles, that's where you could share with your clients or your key stakeholders to engage and share their story or voice or be a part of this research project, and also shape the design of potential future programming and events, and even come to that community summit. So there's going to be multiple ways to engage clients or stakeholders, students, youth, however you work with folks in the community to be a part of this. Okay. I don't know if any other questions or thoughts that are coming up. Feel free to share on our Jamboard. We're looking at that as well. Feel free to share any feedback that's coming. And we're looking at the chat box as well too. Would folks be able to support and engage in this work as individuals, or they need to be a part of a group or organization? That's a great question. We are looking for individual support as well. So an example could be our Community Action Summit. We will be looking for individual volunteers to really support us in building that summit and all the various things that happen with conferencing in terms of registration and everything like that. In terms of individual support, a big thing for us right now is amplifying the message. So whether your social channels or whether sharing with your networks of what we're doing right now, getting folks engaged in learning about what we're working on and raising attention to this is a really big deal. So that's where the individual support right now goes a long way, as as people are sharing, like, hey, you need to check this out. They're doing some really interesting work, or hey, we need to amplify this, or sending even resources right now for the literature review. That's where individuals can support if they've done research or know community-based research in that area. So there's quite a few key asks where I think individuals can really support us at this current moment and get involved. Any other questions or thoughts? Amira, anything to share? Okay.
No, I'm actually going to put in my email in the chat to see if folks have any other suggestions, or if they already have some reports or research or any ideas. Feel free to email that, but I know that'll be on the next slide too.
So we will be doing the next few weeks. We'll also be doing an Instagram live talking about this research work, because we know not everyone can come today at 10 in the morning on a Friday, and people have other meetings to join as well too. So definitely we will be doing this, sharing this recording out to everyone in email. We'll be also in the email that's coming up, we'll be sharing our key asks to what we need your support with, whether it's an individual level or at an organization level. And then we'll also be doing an Instagram live coming up to share with the larger community, and they can watch our recording in that way too. But we're really, at this stage, we're really trying to amplify the work that we're doing, and we're really trying to get feedback from community as well on the design and the approach. Okay. I think, if there's any questions, thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So again, feel free, I know folks have to jump off and they're leaving, and that's perfectly fine. We're not taking the full hour of your time as well, but we're here to stick around if you want to hang out and ask any questions about the research design and process, or get any clarification on anything that we're working on. Again, we've shared a Jamboard in the link. So if there's things that you want to if you want to be anonymous, you could share as well your thoughts and comments there. And we will send up a follow-up email with the slides, the webinar link, the key asks, and how you can continue to engage with us. So if things are like, I could see potential synergy with what we're working on and what you're working on, we'd love to connect and see where that synergy, what that synergy potentially looks like. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Manmira, for joining us. We're definitely will be reaching out to you to see where we can work together on this as well too. So again, thank you so much for joining us.